2 hours later.
Someone is slapping the bag with a baseball bat.
Yeah, it's bad.
Oh, head kick.
Welcome to Kyle Anthony's UFC betting show. I am Kyle Anthony, and welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the prediction show for UFC on ESPN plus 14. Valentina Shevchenko versus Liz Carmouche. We're going to talk about 2 free plays on this card. Also have options on Wagertalk as well if you take a look at. And this card may not be the highest end card, but I think the main card has got some exciting fights, some new fighters that I think are going to be very interesting. Do have some plays that I do like some of the lines, do like some value plays here as well. So we're going to get into all of that. And if you do like UFC, gambling content, gambling advice, get involved in the channel. Appreciate for those of you that hit the subscribe button and also give this a thumbs up. So we're going to get into our first free play. Our main free play is on a main card fight between Volkan Ozdemir and Ilir Latifi. So Latifi versus Ozdemir, this is a fight that they've been trying to set. I think this is the 3rd time that they've been trying to have this fight. There was visa issues. There's all kinds of things going on. They're pushing this fight around. So finally, at this point, it looks like it's going to happen. So right now we've got Latifi at plus 122. You've got Ozdemir at minus 148. So pretty close there with the odds. You got a slight favorite on Ozdemir. And first and really, this is a grappler versus striker matchup. It's very a classic matchup between the two. Latifi, of course, can strike. Ozdemir is more predominant hard-hitting striker. So I like what I always like to do, go over the last 3 of each one very quickly. We're not diving into statistics and stuff here. More looking at opportunities where someone is elevating, where maybe somebody is declining, maybe they're evolving a little bit better in their striking or ground game, and piecing it together with the fighter that they are fighting. And also making sure that the line is good and we're finding value. So the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to look at Latifi. So Latifi, his 3 fights ago, he fought Tyson Pedro. Now for me, Tyson Pedro at this time was looking very promising. I mean, at that point, he was beating some, just kind of coming into the UFC, got some victories, looked good, has a good ground game, he has good striking. Overall, he looked like he was the whole package. And at this time here, I was more at the point where I thought Pedro was really going to show up here. But this fight here, I thought was really a great showing for Latifi. He was able to really keep control of the fight. He had a lot on Pedro, though. I didn't really like going into this fight like Pedro. Watching it really exposed a lot of things that Pedro was not very good at. He kept up a good pace, as in Latifi. He was able to move forward a lot, was able to push, and even looking for some of the takedowns, it was able to really level change and find opportunities for the strikes. And he was able to get that victory there, Latifi. He won by decision. And the thing there, though, also is that where I downgrade this win for Latifi is really because since that, including that, I should say, Tyson Pedro is 1-3. So, Pedro, again, slightly a known name, a guy that had some hype behind him, a lot of opportunity for him, and it's not really evolved into the guy that a lot of people really thought that he was. So for me, I downgrade that victory for Latifi, but it was a nice showing for him overall. Then you've got, the next fight was against OSP, and OSP here, I mean, this was a fight where Latifi goes in there and gets the knockout victory in that first round, but this was a fight that, first round here, I thought OSP actually was fighting pretty well. Now, it wasn't too much of an exchange, it wasn't much of a battle, but really you saw OSP keeping Latifi at a distance, which is something that I think that Ozdemir is going to be able to do, because obviously the pace or anything else with the wrestling that you've got Latifi, he's going to move forward and he's going to be able to try to close the distance. And pretty much the entire first round, although it was a short fight and although OSP lost, there was a lot of it was pretty much OSP dictating the pace, keeping the space between them, which is a very critical part going into this fight. And then it was one lapse of judgment where OSP kind of overexerted himself. Latifi lands and ends up dropping him and and then he ended up getting back up, gets a submission victory. So it was a nice showing for for Latifi overall. But again, to me, a little suspect when it comes to really the whole fight. When you take a look at just what happened, you've got a decision victory and another victory in the first round. You know, those look good on paper, but when I really rewatched, I wasn't as excited about Latifi as I was when I was first going into this, taking a look at the fights and taking a look at really how I'm going to really be scoring, where I'm really going to be going with this bet. And then the last fight was against Corey Anderson, his most recent fight. This fight here was another situation here where I'm looking at it, and again, this was a loss actually for Latifi. But Corey Anderson, to me, I'm not very high on him overall. I'm not really a kind of guy that really thinks he's going to go very far. I know that he's got another fight booked, and he was trying to, get in there against, he's got a fight against that Walker, which I think Walker is going to detonate his head. But you've got a fight here where you've got Corey Anderson, and Corey Anderson was able to really, look like, he looked a little bit better than he normally does. But the thing here was the most part was that overall that entire fight, you really saw not much at all from Latifi. Latifi had mediocre movement, he had very simplistic striking, and even his desperate takedowns. And those are things that really Latifi brought to the table a lot with his power or with his pace, with a lot of his forward movement, his wrestling. And really I felt like over the last 3 fights, I didn't really see much of that. Yes, he did win 2 of those, but it wasn't very impressive to me overall. So to me, right then, starting to get me to more look at Volkan Ozdemir. So now we're going to talk about Ozdemir. His last 3 fights are all 3 losses, which does change things a little bit when you first look at it. But when you take a look at it, what's kind of going on here, Ozdemir was going into this with 3-fight win streak. And then he went out there and he fought Daniel Cormier. Now, Cormier, obviously a world beater, GOAT, one of the greatest of all time. But goes in there. This was just one of those things where you take a look, it was just too much too soon for Ozdemir. Ozdemir really just didn't have much to do. That first round, he kind of came out guns blazing, and I think that even, Cormier played a little bit more in the defense. That first half of that first round kind of played defense a little bit, and, Ozdemir looked to land a couple shots, but after that, it was pretty much, Cormier's landing shots, able to get the takedown, able to pretty much do whatever he wanted to do going into that second round. He does lose, Ozdemir does lose, second round TKO, and the ground and pound in the wrestling is again something that a lot of people bring up in this fight. Ozdemir, was he exposed there? Now you've got Latifi, strong wrestler, that's his bread and butter. Is that going to be a situation that Ozdemir can be exposed in this fight? Then the fight after that was against Anthony Smith. Now against Anthony Smith, this was a fight here that Anthony Smith was coming off 2 back-to-back KO wins. He started to look very good. He had, a lot of the hype was starting to really come behind him. And those first 2 rounds against Smith, Ozdemir looked good. I mean, he was hurting Smith. Smith was hurt. There were spots there that I thought that Ozdemir really could have kept going forward. There was a lot of leg kicks involved. I thought Ozdemir was mixing it up very nicely, and Smith wanted to stand and bang. You had Ozdemir landing some big shots, but a lapse in judgment, a little bit of misstep, another mishap there. And Smith ends up finding an opportunity to get a submission victory in that 3rd round. So that was something where he looked good. I mean, this was something I thought Ozdemir looked good. He was moving forward. He was landing big shots. He really had good cage control, moving around. And then he kind of just fell apart in that 3rd round. You did see a little bit of the gas tank. That's always something a lot of us are talking about. That, does Ozdemir have that gas tank to go 3 rounds, to go 5 rounds, that kind of thing. And, I thought he looked fairly good in that 3rd round, but again, a very bad decision cost him that victory. And then the last one, most recent, was against Dominic Reyes. This was a fight here. You got Reyes, another guy, a lot of hype behind him, undefeated, and it was a very close fight. Now, this is a fight where a lot of people are going back and forth, and, did, Ozdemir win? Did Reyes win? Reyes does get a split decision victory. I actually had Ozdemir winning this. So if Ozdemir beats Reyes, I think the landscape and even the odds, if this fight was to happen afterwards of that, I think it would be a completely different storyline to this. So I thought that he fought really well. I think you could see he's elevating. I think that he's changing a lot. The big question here going into this fight is going to be the wrestling between Latifi and Ozdemir. So with that all being said, kind of running through them very quickly, with that all being said, you've got the height 4-inch reach advantage for Ozdemir. You've got a 4-inch height advantage for Ozdemir. You've got a 3-inch reach advantage for him as well, which does take place, which will matter a little bit when he's trying to keep him at bay, and hopefully he's able to sprawl if he's looking at, Latifi going in for the takedowns. But Latifi at 36 years old, Ozdemir 29, that's a very big question to me. And for me, when I'm looking at this and I'm capping this fight, I think that the minus 148 on Ozdemir is a good price. Now, I just don't like where Latifi is at this point. Now, the wrestling is going to be the big part of it, but I like what Ozdemir can do going into this fight. I think that he's going to be able to really keep Latifi at bay. The first round, I think, is going to be a little scary because it's going to be depending on what Latifi is going to do. Now, if Latifi can go out there and get that quick takedown, that's going to be a lot of bad news for Ozdemir. But I really believe that Latifi's going to look to exchange quickly. I think Ozdemir is going to be a little bit more patient. I think he's going to find the chin of Latifi. I like the price here in Ozdemir. I think the minus 148 is a good price. I think that he's going to get the job done. I think these 3 losses here also are a big experience for him overall. Now, everyone really is talking about that Cormier and he was taken down and that whole thing. I mean, it's Daniel Cormier. That is the elite wrestler. That is a guy that's able to pretty much take down anybody, dominate. That's the kind of, that piece of it, I think, is really the storyline between this fight, where I don't put Latifi with Daniel Cormier when you're talking about striking. Wrestling, yes, Latifi has had that, and I understand even Daniel Cormier is 40 and Latifi's 36, but Cormier is defying time. I like Ozdemir here. I think he's going to be able to, again, keep him at bay. And the last few fights that I saw with Corey Anderson and with OSP for Latifi, I thought that the simplistic striking, he would look sloppy. He did not really have the pressure that would really smother up Ozdemir and consistently do that for 3 rounds. I like the opportunity here for Ozdemir to get this victory. So as my free play, I am going Volkan Ozdemir as a winner. Now, the next one we're going to talk about is Vicente Luque versus Mike Perry. Now, this is a one that I've talked to a lot of you on Twitter, and follow me on Twitter at Kyle Anthony UFC. A lot of people are back and forth in this fight. And you've got Mike Perry, who is a plus 180. You've got Luque, who is a minus 225. This fight is, I think, one of the more interesting fights of this card. And the more I looked at it, and, you're doing your research, you're taking a look at stuff, and, there's a lot to really digest with this fight overall. Because, a lot of people are very quick to say Luque. They're very quick to go out there and say, hey, Luque, technical, his combinations, he's, Perry, he's sloppy, he doesn't have, the skill level to really just outpoint. His only thing is one big shot. That's the only way he wins. I think there's a lot to take in here. So we're first going to talk about Mike Perry. So Mike Perry, and we'll go over these quickly. Mike Perry, 3 fights ago, he fought Paul Felder. This was a fight here where Felder did break his arm early in that fight. I think Perry still looked good. I'm high on Paul Felder overall. His creative striking, how he comes at you, his angles, his elbows. I mean, he really has dynamic striking overall. And Perry did get that victory, a split decision victory there. And it's tough to take anything away from this with Felder not having an arm in that fight. So that's going to really change things here. But Perry going through 3 rounds, showing that he can last the 3 rounds, is a little bit more where a lot of people talk about the cardio. I think here he looked pretty good. He did go out there and did get that victory. The next one was against Donald Cerrone. Now, this was one where Donald Cerrone, people are starting to really kind of downplay Cerrone. He had gotten knocked out. Is his chin done? Is he getting older? Does he even care anymore? There was a lot of that going on, and I was more with that he looked like he didn't care. He almost was saying that he didn't care. He just kind of wanted to fight, and even now you hear him, he has really changed his tune. He's really more driven, has a son now. It looks like he's more focused on trying to win overall. But this fight here, he didn't even really look like he cared as much. But Perry, this was another part where people don't like Perry because he goes out there like a madman and starts throwing big shots. He looked like he was pressuring Donald Cerrone, which that is how you pretty much a path to victory, to beating Cerrone. Pressuring him, don't give him the space to really use his kicks and use his angles. And out there, Mike Perry goes out there, he loses by armbar because he completely left himself open in a spot where maybe Cerrone Could have, he could have backed off Cerrone. It was really bad judgments there, which fight IQ, wouldn't say it's too high with Perry because he is a beast, but there is something to be said about that as well. And then his most recent fight was against Alex Oliveira. Now, Alex Oliveira, he's very good. He's kind of one of those underrated guys who is well-rounded. He's really, he's got great spin kicks. He's got great, combinations from the outside. I like the way he moves, great footwork. And that's the kind of thing that can beat Mike Perry. If you move around a lot, I think that's a way to really beat Mike Perry. Make him move, make him uncomfortable. Where Perry is kind of a straightforward kind of guy. He doesn't have the craziest when it comes to footwork or how he's moving around the cage, but he's got the power, he's got the hands. This fight here, the first round, you saw Alex Oliveira really take it to Perry. But then after that, because Perry was really being pulled into a brawl where it almost seemed like he didn't want to be pulled into it, and then he backed off in that second and third round, and that was when really Perry looked good. He was able to really work himself in there. He was able to push forward. He hurt Alex a few times in that fight. It was a good win for Perry overall. He does get the decision victory there, but that's something where I think you could take a lot away from that fight, and if you rewatch it, you can really see that I think Perry is starting to become a little bit more patient when it comes to learning from the last few fights. Now you've got Luque, his last 3 fights, and I'm not going to go over these too crazy, but if you break these fights down, out of the 3 fights, the last 3 fights, because a lot of people are talking about Luque, he's been knocking guys out, and his technical skills, and all these other things that he's got. Very true. I don't think that he's a bad striker, but his fighting style kind of fits into how Perry likes to fight. Now, you've got the last 3 fights, Jalen Turner. You've got Jalen Turner. He ended up knocking Turner out in the first round. Then you had him against Brian Barberena. And Barberena, that was a heck of a fight, a brawl. I mean, those guys really went at it. And Barberena, more of a journeyman kind of guy. Not really a kind of guy that you're going to see that he's, going to be a title contender. He's kind of the gatekeeper kind of guy. To have a war against the gatekeeper kind of guy, there's really something to be said about that, but he went out there, Barberena dropped Luque in that second round. Luque ended up coming back and getting a victory by stoppage with seconds left, which is a very close fight up until that point, but Luque does get that victory. And I actually wanted to add, too, that Jalen Turner, this was a debut fight for him. He was coming off the Contender Series, and he comes into this fight, not much experience, and then Luque goes out there and beats him. You can see the inexperience level, but Turner actually went out there. He was hurting Luque early and landing some nice shots. You can see there was damage to his face. Then he makes some really bad decisions there. And I didn't mean to go back to this, but even with the situation here, up until that knockout of Turner, the strikes were even. So he was landing, it's just the inexperience level of Turner. And then you've got Derek Krantz, which was his last fight. He was supposed to fight Neil Magny. Neil Magny ends up not being able to compete, had to step in here. It was another debuting fighter, and Luque goes out there and gets that victory. But if you take down all 3 of these fights, you see he was a monster favorite in all of these. And even against Derek Krantz, that fight, early on, Luque was in a little bit of trouble. When he pressured, he pushed forward, and you could see how sloppy, he was already tired, Krantz was overall. So there's definitely the pressure could be an interesting part where Perry can exploit. So you've even got Turner. Turner was, when he fought Turner, Luque was a minus 900 favorite. Against Barberena, Luque was a minus 500 favorite. And his most recent fight against Krantz was minus 1,200 favorite. So a lot of highlights that you're going to see, that they're going to talk about, and, even when you look back and knockouts and good finishes and all these things, these are guys that I think Perry would be able to detonate easily as well. So I don't really put it much as the victories that he has there is the caliber. And Perry has really fought much high-level caliber than Luque. Luque does have the technical skills. Luque does have good ground game. But the thing about Luque is that he likes to stand. And if you go back to pretty much most of his fights, unless it's really somebody shooting on him or there's an opportunity, something happens on the ground, pretty much Luque likes to stand, he likes to fight, he keekeeps his head on the center line. That's the kind of thing that Perry loves. And I think even Perry, once Luque had won in the last fight, you heard Perry kind of calling him out, because I think Perry sees that there's an opportunity for him to go out there and get this victory. And overall, Luque's hittable. I mean, without a doubt, Luque is hittable. Now, he has faster hands than Perry, definitely faster hands, but he's hittable and Perry is durable. So, and I'm not even saying that Luque's not durable, but the fact that you're going to be getting plus 180 odds on Mike Perry has definitely made some bad decisions there, and I know some of you are probably saying, really, Mike Perry, and I actually talked to somebody during this week, and they said, you know what, I'm done betting Perry. I can't bet him. I'm done with it. I'm not betting his fights anymore. For me, I like Perry here. I think Perry with the plus 180 odds in a fight that I think is just going to be a brawl, not going to be going to the ground. It's going to be giving opportunity for Perry. I think Perry, if he goes out there, he's patient. He doesn't go out there and just try to steamroll. Even if he steamrolls, I still like the plus 180 because I think they're just going to stand and exchange. And Luque will stand in front of him with his head in the center line and will strike, and that is something that Perry loves. So for me, as my other free play, I am going Mike Perry at plus 180. So let me know what you guys think. I mean, I'd love to hear what you say about the Mike Perry play because, again, I love hearing what you guys say, how you guys are really capping it yourself, what kind of other bets you guys are placing. Please let me know down below. Subscribe if you have not yet done so. Give it a thumbs up if you appreciate what I'm doing here, this content, the show. Hope you're enjoying some of the intros. Just kind of having some fun there and bring a little bit of humor before we get into some serious business of making money. So this is the show. Those are the free two plays. Wagertalk. Check out those options there as well. And we will see you at the Bet Review Show on Sunday. And this is Kyle Anthony's UFC Betting Show. And I'll see you Sunday at the Bet Review.